What's up, gang? Welcome to Room and Board. My name is Chris George, and today we have another episode of Crowdfunding Countdown, where I take a look at every single board game campaign leaving Kickstarter this week, reading through the rulebooks so you don't have to, and highlighting any interesting mechanics that I think you should know about. Maybe having a chuckle or two along the way. Let's be clear, I will be the one having the chuckle. I'm not legally promising you anything. In all likelihood, you have a larger chance of being moved to tears. And in fact, I'm almost moved to tears. My heart is heavy because I noticed in the last video, for some reason, when I talked about All Blart Lax Racks, all that came up was this image without Officer Blart, as it should have been. And I'm devastated. I truly am. I'd like to apologize to all my fans and all you Blart heads out there. I sincerely hope that you give me a second chance. I regret my actions, and no one should behave in the way that I have done. And to make it up to you, this is a promise, a Chris George guarantee, no less, that there will be no less than 6 Blarts appearing throughout this video. I'm turning this whole video into my most popular segment, Spot the Blart. Senior Officer Blart deserves no less, and I am ashamed that I've dishonored him so greatly. Anyway, with that somber tone out of the way, let's get to the games. As you know, I like to cover games that are ending at their funding goals, because this way you can see how many extra goodies you get. And also because I think it's a good bar to give everybody that little boost on the way out from my thousands and thousands of subscribers. And plus, nobody else was doing it. Probably because our collective attention spans have diminished past the point of no return, and who really can spend 3 weeks deciding on anything, much less a bed frame? Come on, Judith, just pick one so we can get out of this IKEA. Okay, here we go. Now, our first one this week is not a board game, but it's board game bordering. I think we're calling it that these days. But it's Bag of Goons, which I think is a great title, first off, and is for those times when you're playing D&D and you need a whole horde of monsters, goblins, whatever, but they're so expendable that you don't want to break the bank on really impressive miniatures, and you don't want to ruin the big reveal for that big mini you've got coming up, the Demogorgon, to arrive. You just want a lot of them. Well, this is the campaign for you. It's $15 for 10 goons. I think they've only got goblins right now, but there's going to be a variety of different sculpts. And that works out to be $1.50 Canadian per mini. Seems okay? I'm not quite sure. You'll have to tell me out there if you know of any other affordable bulk mini system. The campaign claims that this is the only one, so since I believe all marketing, I'll just agree that it's the only bulk option out there. And you should get it if that interests you. If you're interested, you have until 2:34 a.m. on Thursday to decide, aka Wednesday night. Now next up, hold on to your dogs and give them plenty of fruit, because we've got a swashbuckling gateway war game, Old Salt. That was a scurvy dog's joke, you see. Now this is currently sitting around 2K away from hitting its funding goal. So I think it's still got a chance. I believe it can make it there, and it does look fun. It doesn't come with that fancy little Admiral push stick that they're showing in their videos, so immediately lessens my excitement for it by about 50%. But basically you're going to start off with 3 islands, and the goal of the game is to control 6 of them, or murder everyone else's ships. Murder, not destroy. Murder their ships, and be the last sea dog standing. There's 14 islands in total, and you can play 2 to 4 players, and you'll decide your island placement, the initial placement, by snake draft. You'll pick 2, it'll go around, the last person will pick 3, and then it'll come back to the first person who will place their last island. And I was really primed to say, hey, I think this is a war game, therefore it's probably just 2 players, or more head-to-head. I know war games can involve a lot of players. But if you don't mind a giant free-for-all, sailing your pirate ships around the seas, rolling dice and firing cannons at everyone, I think it could play well for any of its player count. And that's what I get for prejudging it. There's going to be a bunch of different ships which do a bunch of different things. Some move better on water, some are heavier tanks used for artillery battles. And what's really neat is they have these little wooden tokens for the ships, and then you just put your own player color flag sail into it. So everybody can have a variety of ships, and then which have a variety of different abilities, and then you just get your little color on it. I don't know why I find this cool. A lot of things do a similar thing, but I just think it's slick with the wooden tokens and then just slotting it in there. I think it looks nice. There's also a preset breakdown of which ships go to which faction, which is great for people like me who hate the assembling your army portion of a lot of these types of games. I just want the developer to tell me what to do and then I'll figure it out. But you still have the option of swapping 2 of these ships after everybody's picked their allotted ships with whatever remains, which I also think is cool. It seems like there's a lot of room for strategy in this drafting portion of it, a lot of room for asymmetry just based upon the breakdown of what ships you have in your arsenal. If you like the X-Wing skirmish game, it honestly kind of reminds me a bit of that, but I get the gateway portion because you actually have a board and you don't have to worry about measuring out distance on a table, you just kind of move by your hex. So it definitely hits with that sort of gateway war game moniker it's given itself. And so if you've ever been interested in that sort of thing, this might be one to take a look at. For me, I think it looks pretty neat. It's $59 for the base pledge, and that finishes Thursday at 10:30 a.m. Now, I know what you've been thinking. Why can't we have a retheming of the card game War? The most dynamic card game of them all. Well, there is one. It's called Skip-Bo if you just take a Skip-Bo deck and play War with it, as is my girlfriend's nephew's favorite game currently. So I can only imagine he would burn his house down to get a chance to own a copy of our next game, House Pets versus Aliens. Remember War? You probably forget all the complex rules behind it, but it boils down to you flip over a card and you see whose card is higher and you win. Yeah, it's War. Okay, jokes aside, it's better than that by a little bit because it also has this little push your luck mechanic in it so that if you are below 10, 10 being the highest alien, you can continue to draw cards, and as long as you don't bust, those aliens get added to your strength. But if you do bust, then your opponent gets to capture all of your aliens anyway, or house pets, whatever faction you're playing against. And the person who has the most cards belonging to the other person at the end of the game, once you've gone through your respective decks, is the winner. They also have these battle cards where you have 5 in your hand and you can choose when to play them throughout the game. So these are kind of like special abilities. You can bump your stats up by a bit. You can force your other opponent to play a card. It's War. I don't know why I'm spending so long talking about War. It's just War. But if you like War, if you're one of those warheads out there, jarheads? That's a different thing. And you wanted to shake up all those other horrible variants of War you've been playing, well then maybe you would be interested in this. However, even though I've gotten you frothing at the mouth right now, I also have to tell you that it's 26 bucks Canadian for the 2-player version or $51 Canadian for a 4-player version of War. And if you're spending $51 on a game of War, you and I might have to start a real war so I can clearly steal all of your millions and millions that are going to horrible use because money means nothing to you. But hey, if you're interested, that's Thursday at 11 a.m. The art looks okay, and the theme song on the video is a banger, and I'm sure that those reasons are why it's raised over 50,000 Canadian dollars. People want war. I've been asking to return to the simple things in life. I didn't know it was through house pets and aliens. Now our next one is an even smaller deck of cards, if you could believe it, and has raised $4,000 more than our previous entry. So soon, both the house pets and the aliens alike are going to have to team up and take on this behemoth, the evil, the sinister Mini Mints. So Mint Mini deals with that age-old problem. What happens when you and your friends are at a completely empty cafe and you all want to play a game? Only much to your chagrin, you've all brought a different version of the Mint series, which, if you didn't know, are a series of games that come in these little mint tins, and they get away with using a tin because they're so small. I'm looking at you, Forbidden Island. This is the only acceptable size for tin games. Imagine Twilight Imperium 4 coming in a big old tin. We stick with boxes here. Anyway, hundreds and hundreds of people have been having this problem. Different Mint series. Which one to play? Relationships were tested and broken, and not only at Christmas. The Mint series, since the dawn of time, has been responsible for the rise and fall of empires. All because when you have one Mint game, you are legally bound to only play that Mint game and never show any allegiance to the other Mint series factions. And go to war, nope, not that one, against anyone who has a different copy than you. It's a tragedy. All of you are going down. You're going down. What sorrow. But cry no more. Paquetto realized the error of their ways. So in order to save the planet and mend what was broken, they decided, throw them all together, I guess? And voila! We've got Mint Mini! It's $10 and it's a bunch of mini games from all their other games. My guess is they took the best ones and they threw them in here, and this is the optimal Mint thing to get. And any other Mint games you own could just be thrown in the trash because their best parts are in here, like a beautiful baby Frankenstein. And then you're all competing to see who can get 10 points first out of all these mini games. When I think of mini games, I think of Mario Party. So if it isn't as fun as Mario Party, you can legally send it back. Just don't expect a refund. I mean, also with this campaign, you can get any other games from the Mint series that you want to, but why would you want to, since this game has achieved the monumental triumph of complete world peace? Or you could also pay $35 extra for a bunch of promo cards to games that you probably don't even own. So don't do that one. But for $10 and a little travel tin, a game that looks decently fun and you can pull out and play from a series that's been generally well received, yeah, I don't think it's a bad choice. So if you're interested, you have until Thursday at noon to decide. Now next up we have Dog Park, a beautiful board game about walking dogs. And yes, I know the title is actually just Dog Park, but I don't care. I am legally changing it. There's been a lot of legal statements made in this video so far. So I'd like to take this moment and say I am a certified accountant and this is all valuable legal advice. So in Dog Park, a beautiful board game about walking dogs, you're going to take on the role of dog walkers. Imagine that. Competing to get the most dogs into your kennel, even if you can't walk them all at once, and make sure that they have a great life while their masters are out in Hawaii and they couldn't take old Fluffy with them. So every day, since you have 3 hands, that's why you're the best dog walker in the business. That's why you got into this racket. You can take 3 dogs a day for a walk, and the rest you just lie to their owners and tell them that you did. Now, first of all, the art is absolutely gorgeous on this one. It's all sort of watercolor individual portraits of the dogs, which is great. And I really like the bidding mechanic that's in it. You'll stake your reputation for which dog you want to get into your kennel, but the person with the most reputation at the end of the game wins, so you're sacrificing points to potentially get these better dogs down the line. Or you can pretend to be going for one of these dogs and force your opponent to bid up super high and then just take the other mutt who's going to need to be walked too, and hopefully score more points that way, having clipped your opponent at the heels. Heels. Didn't even plan that one. And the walking mechanic also seems all right. You're going to take turns one at a time walking along in the park, picking up the resources that you want. But if you're the last one to leave the park, you lose reputation points as well. Because everybody looks at you, dogs pulling you this way and that, realize you're not an efficient dog walker and they don't want their prized pooch in your incompetent hands. I also like that you have to spend resources on your dogs as you walk them, because each dog has a certain requirement that will make them happy. What do they like to play with? How do they like to walk, etc. And you have to time out managing the dogs in your kennel, which you'll have 8 by the end of the game, because you can only walk 3 at once, so you have to juggle them efficiently. They also have bonuses at the end of the game that you're competing over with a percentage on them, which is very much like Wingspan in terms of letting you know how many dogs fall into this particular category, but you're all competing over these bonuses, which is why you may want to stake your reputation earlier on in the game, because you're thinking about these end goal bonuses and you want to have the most prized kennel. I mean, this could very well do for dogs what Wingspan did for birds, Calico did for cats, and Hungry Hungry Hippos did for the sadness of small children when they realize one of their hippos is broken. All in all, seems really solid. It's $68 Canadian for their sort of standard pledge, or it's $82 Canadian for their base pledge. And while I'm usually one to always opt for the base pledge, it seems like a no-brainer to scrounge up those extra $14 if you're interested, because you get 2 additional like dog packs, so that's another 58 cards of dogs that you can shuffle in and provides you with variability, and you get these awesome wooden meeples, silk screened, with cute little tennis balls and sticks and squeaky toys on them, which is just like, come on now. That's obviously the way to go. This is the smallest hike I've seen to upgrade your board game so significantly that if you're interested in this game, I would definitely opt for that better, cuter version. Especially because the art is just so friggin' gorgeous. Dog Park, a beautiful board game about walking dogs, is in fact a beautiful board game about walking dogs. And if you want to get your hands on your own Dog Park Paul Cop and take a nice Paul Park dog walk, that's this Thursday at 3 p.m. to decide. Now, next up, we have Solforge Fusion, which is different than Solforge, which is different than Keyforge, which is different than Magic the Gathering, which is also different than Ascension, the deck building game, and also different than Game of Thrones, the collectible trading card game.
So it's just like Duel Monsters.
And is actually pretty much the same as all of those, but hey, if you like those, well then you may want to jump into Solforge. Like Keyforge before it, you get an algorithmically different deck of cards that all belong to different factions, and you're going to use these cards to fight your opponent, basically, and chunk some health away from them until they're deader than something that is very dead. Most of the jokes that I tell. Deader than a dead horse. But this time, whereas Keyforge gave you whole decks, Solforge gives you half decks. What a ripoff! No, the premise here, I think, is to encourage you combining 2 of these half decks to form a full deck. So while Keyforge was unique in the sense that you got this unique deck and you could play with it just right out of the box, and if it was worse than another deck, well, you're just out of luck. This one, you have half decks. So presumably you can keep hoping that you'll find some other half deck out there that works with this horrible, horrible deck that you just happen to like because the leader looks cool. This one also has lane-based combat, or what it describes itself as, which, if I remember correctly from my Keyforge plays, in Keyforge you didn't actually have to worry about which specific spot on your map you played it. Also in this one you'll have this main Forge-born character, which kind of operates as your main character. And the more cards you play, your cards actually get upgraded as well. So the more you play of the same card, the better effects that it has, which is kind of a neat concept in these games, especially in a physical game. Like, I see how it's easy to implement in something like Hearthstone, which is online and I have played way, way too much of in my life. But having a physical upgrading ability and your Forgeborn can do better and better things as you go on, I think that's a pretty neat concept. But Keyforge was a great time, especially if you pick up a bunch of decks from people who thought that they would buy a bunch of valuable decks and resell them, only to realize that their decks were horrible and nobody wanted them except little old me, who didn't care if I've got a bunch of horrible decks, because when you face a horrible deck against a horrible deck, that actually equals out to a pretty fun time. Keyforge is definitely one of my favorite head-to-head card games, so I expect that Solforge will be of a similar level of entertainment. But realistically, instead of paying $40 US for the starter set, I'll probably just wait until it goes the same route as Keyforge and I can pick it up for cheap, cheap, cheap. Anyway, if you're interested in that, the deadline is Thursday at 6 p.m. Now, next up we have Tanares RPG, which at the point of recording this video has raised $1.68 million, which is pretty outrageously good for an RPG campaign. They've got a ton of pledge options. I'm sure you've checked out the campaign page by now, just for virtue of they've been running a awesome giveaway that I've had linked up for the last few crowdfunding countdowns, and which will continue 3 weeks from today, even though this campaign finishes Thursday. But it's $50 for one hardcover book of your choice and the associated PDFs and all the associated stretch goals, which makes you think like it's a good deal when you look at the stretch goals and you see, wow, 31 minis, okay, I can get a book and a whole bunch of minis. Well, no, the keyword is associated stretch goals, so you need to get the boxes of minis, which have a few extra minis if you get them now. And you need to get a whole bunch of different boxes of minis if you want to link them up. It's actually a pretty confusing mess of a campaign page, so I'm glad that it's been around for so long for people to actually figure it out. Honestly, I think they're just banking on it being so overwhelming you decide, screw it, I'll get everything, including all the board games that they've put out. That is a good thing about this campaign. If you missed Tanares Adventures or Arena the Contest and you wanted to pick those up, you can get them here with a few additional goodies. So if you're interested in those or jumping into Tanares RPG, you have until 8 p.m. on Thursday to decide. Just make sure you're jumping in for the excitement of the actual product, and whatever stretch goals you get on top of that that are associated with that thing will be an added bonus. Don't go in for just the stretch goals, because you might be disappointed when you pledge and receive just one single card. Honestly, if you're looking for RPGs, I would still go with the Avatar RPG system, because for 20 bucks, 25 Canadian, you can get PDFs, a digital copy of literally all of their content, which compared to this seems like the obvious value in probably an equally as cool world. Now, next up we have Kenji's Quest. And this one probably isn't going to make its funding. It's really not that close, but the reason I wanted to bring it up is because they're going to do two nice things for their backers. When they open up their physical store and they start selling their miniatures, they're going to offer the same Kickstarter prices to you if you were an existing backer, regardless of if this campaign funds or not. So if you wanted to lock in those sorts of savings, I mean, I expect the savings will be minimal, to be honest. But if you want to lock that in, this might be something to pledge into. And the other reason is that they are currently making a preview copy to send out to content creators so that they can get a little bit more marketing and a little bit more buzz when they relaunch down the road. But they also said that they would be happy to send out these sorts of preview copies to backers who are interested in testing it out or early testing. And I think when a company is focused on that and focused on the relaunch and is focused on rewarding their initial supporters in whatever way they can, I think that is nice to mention and deserves a highlight. As for Kenji Quest, it's an RPG. There are a bunch of different modes to play. You need a dungeon master or a game host. And as the game host, along with their groundbreaking companion app, which is probably just a companion app, the game host gets to lead the game, display the art, also gets to play the music. That sounds fun. You get to show the stats during battle on the app. This description alone is probably why the campaign hasn't done well. I don't want to be a glorified upkeep manager. In addition, they're offering a bare bones pledge for 49 bucks, which is great because it has the standee option, but it doesn't even have dice in it. Their justification being, you probably have some dice. Well, yeah, but just throw in like 2 dice so that they can be in the box. Just do a tiny bit more. Please, Kenji. Anyway, my main point about talking about this one was the early playtesting for backers, which I think is cool and might interest some of you out there. The minis look cool, but they are also very, very expensive. So if you're interested in this one, that's Friday, October 1st at 1:59 a.m., aka Thursday night. Now next up, we have a game called Raptor Island. And Raptor Island describes itself as a 2 to 5 player action card game where players work against each other to gather dinosaur DNA without being eaten first, fuel the last remaining escape helicopter, and ultimately escape the island. Get to the chopper! And prove that life breaks free. It also says that Raptor Island will be a hit with every player at a tabletop game night. Every player? Even Aunt Gladys? Even Uncle Tony? Even Tiffany, who had that run-in with that giant iguana and is absolutely terrified of anything with claws and scales, and this is literally her worst nightmare, and now you've condemned her to 4 more years of intense rehabilitative therapy? Shame on you, Raptor Island. You promised. I mean, it's a pretty basic card game. You have 3 cards. On your turn, you play one of them. Then on your next turn, you draw 1 card. And then you play a card. And your goal is to hope you draw some DNA, I guess. And then also hope that enough people put fuel into the helicopter. But the thing is, if you don't have 2 DNA in your hand, why would you ever put fuel into the helicopter? Because then you're just setting it up for someone else to just fly away when they have the DNA before you. So you gotta get your DNA and then probably start fueling it, hoping that nobody gets their DNA or steals it from you with a wacky card action before you have a chance to escape. I mean, it's 26 bucks Canadian for this, which is about the standard price for a Kickstarter card game like this, which, as I often say, is $5 too expensive for my taste. I won't say that this time. I'll say that it's probably $11 too expensive for my taste. Just what I feel I would be interested in paying if I was interested. But hey, if you're interested, that's Friday at 3:59 a.m., aka also Thursday night. Now, next up, we've got the classic party game, where two people hold a stick and you try to bend back as far as you can and shimmy your way under the stick until you can't go any lower and you fall over. Limbo, or the new and improved version of Limbo, Limbo 1.5, which they've actually changed a lot of the rules from standard Limbo, so much so that if I wasn't so well versed in board games, I would barely recognize it as the original Limbo, which, fun fact, used to be referred by its street name, All Blart Pole Vault. Anyway, this is a relaunch of the campaign and they're doing fairly well, which is great for them. People are excited and fans of the original are excited to get the 1.5 update pack. Now, don't be fooled by the early bird pledges, which are all gone. It's the same price. The only thing that you miss out on is getting one additional hero, which, when you consider that the main things that you like in this game are one step above the heroes called the Lords, you're probably okay missing out on it. It's your standard skirmish armies game, where you choose at the beginning of the game how big your armies are going to be based on a point system, and then you each take units to form up your team, and you're all led by this big Lord mini, like the singer. You then proceed to hurl your forces against the enemy and try not to die, trying to kill their Lord first or get a predetermined number of victory points. Other than that, it's pretty simple. You move your pieces around, you can attack with your pieces, or you can maneuver them in a certain way to get their defenses up, using whatever abilities that they have attached to their equipment that you've assigned them. Chess on steroids, I guess. They also do have some preset armies, which, as I said before, talking about Old Salt, I love to see, because I really do find the idea of building my own armies kind of overwhelming, and it really puts me off dipping my toe into a lot of these types of games. I just prefer when the game tells me what my asymmetrical faction will be, not having to craft it all myself. And they also have a story mode built in, which is what these sort of preset armies are initially for, and that'll help you learn the basics as well. And they also unlocked a solo mode in the stretch goals, which for all you solo fans out there is always a good thing. It's $109 US for a starter set, or $138, and you get 2 additional little boxes, which are basically 1 Lord each, and then a couple heroes and a couple troops. And so I guess it all depends on how cool you think these Lords are, if you like the minis, and how much variance in the gameplay they actually will bring. The backer distribution is split pretty evenly all throughout, although the starter set is the lowest pledged. I think there are like 12 backers doing that, because most people are opting in for the all-in, mainly because we love going all in, and it was an early bird option instead of just a starter set option. I certainly don't think you need to. I actually think the starter set will give you more than enough stuff to play with, and that's what I would opt for, because I don't see that the extra Lords give me that $30 bump in what I would pay. Plus, why not just get the starter set until you know that you like the system? I mean, hopefully you have an inkling that you think this system will be cool when you spend $109 on it, but maybe not. Anyway, all in all, the Works in Progress rulebook is actually really good, very readable, easy to read. You can get a sense of the game quite quickly, and the minis look cool, so if you need another game filled with minis that you are never gonna paint, you don't. The deadline for that is Friday at 11:02 a.m. Now, next up, we have a cheaper version of those wormwood hexagons that I showed you all those moons ago, and that's Hex, the plastic magnetic holders. I just hate these holders. Not Hex in particular, I like the concept. And then when I think about it, even just ever so slightly, I realize that it's so foolish to like this because they seem so useless. I just don't see the point. But then again, I also couldn't really see the point of the Wormwood ones either from a usability standpoint. But I do like that you can purchase the STL files if you have a 3D printer and you want to print your own and you want to give yourself another justification for the reason why you purchased this 3D printer in the first place. I don't know how much of a pain it's going to be to also purchase the magnets and install them into the design. I'm assuming 3D printers can't print magnets yet. If they can, the world is broken, and that's amazing. But I don't know. I mean, I know less about 3D printing than Jon Snow knows about anything. So ultimately, the hassle of printing them may not be worth it. I mean, I know there are people out there who want this, but the design just seems so useless. Why do I need a holder to hold just 4 cards? Why are you showcasing this with Ticket to Ride when your hand is generally like 30 or 40 cards? Why does anybody need to add more time to set up a Catan board to give it a 1-inch boost so you have somewhere to put the roads? It's not like the island is going to crumble into the sea and you thematically remove these land tiles as you go. I mean, although that would be a cool variant, I'm sure, or throw it into a Seafarers variant where the islands shift and parts of the islands go to different islands now. Hey, you're welcome, Catan. You're welcome, Mayfair Games. I will be expecting my royalty check in the mail. Why are there dividers in this already small bowl so we can watch the tiniest hand in the world struggle to scoop out the 5 D8s the half bowl manages to contain? I don't know. I don't know. Please tell me if you're getting Hex, if you're excited about it. Hold on to that excitement. I mean, or don't. It's your life. I'm not going to tell you what to do. If this is something that gets you all blart and bothered, well, it's $27 US for 5 of them, or $89 US, aka $113 Canadian, to have enough to make this Catan board. You have until noon on Friday to decide. Now next up...
What's up, Doc?
Did you hear that? Bunny card game alert. This is a self-described pun-tastic card game about assembling your ultimate bunny kill squad. Play rabbit holes, summon bunnies to those rabbit holes, and try not to get your cards flipped because on the back there's a different card to each one, and make sure you get one of each class to win the game. This wasn't going to get the air horn, albeit a modified version, until they emphasized the pun-tastic nature and the not safe for work expansion. Hey, it sells. People like it, I guess. But it actually looks pretty okay. They're doing a really good job of bringing me in, because there is a moment in this opening video that speaks to me, and only me. I can only assume it speaks to me stronger than anyone in this entire world. Did you see it? We'll play it again. Of course it's Susan. Oh yes, please, Susan. I love it. Susan, no last name. She's also not even a bunny. She's the only chinchilla in the game. Everyone else are bunnies, but Susan is an individual. And we do not argue with her because she is obviously the protagonist of the story. And obviously the objective is just get Susan on your team and you win. Anyway, Susan aside, and how could we really put her aside? Let's bring her back for the rest of this segment. This is definitely one of the most unique and interesting ones of this genre that I've seen in a while. And it's unfortunate that it's $35 Canadian, because if it was like 20, 25, yeah, I might be really interested. I mean, I understand the extra cost because each card does have that front and back, which have a gameplay mechanic to them, because you can play cards to flip the other cards of your opponents. But who doesn't want to have a pop culture bunny version of your favorite characters like Harry Hopper or Mary Hoppins or Paul Hop Carrot Top? But it's also a little bit too random for my taste. A lot too random, to be honest. Whenever you play a Brawl card, it's just drawing straws to see whose bunny gets to stay alive and whose bunnies get discarded. I fear, as I always fear with these types of games, there's going to be too much random take that and not enough substance behind it. But I am really happy to see that it's funded And if you're interested, you have until Friday at 1 p.m. to decide. Now, next up we have a solo-only game, probably because the publishers were so impressed by last week's video about solo games, and not because this is a reprint with an added expansion to an already existing game that did pretty well. And that's Relics of Rajavihara. There we go. Now you get 50 levels of a tower, and you have to work your way through this tower to save the world from an evil nemesis. So it's 50 little puzzles plus a 30 puzzle bonus pack for the base game, plus a mode that boasts an infinite amount of puzzles and an infinite amount of replayability, and a way that you can make your own. I have my doubts, but it's cool that at least something like that is in there to make it semi-replayable. The board is smaller than a piece of paper, so a small footprint, and it seems pretty simple. You can take your little man and you'll have an objective. Usually it's to grab a gem from the level, and you can move around and you can push boxes, but just to the edge. You can't pull them, so if you push them too far, you can't get them back. And you can hop up on a block or hop down a block, but just up one level or not. However, sometimes your objective is to just drop a box on your nemesis's head, which I think is great. And obviously your nemesis just stands still and laughs maniacally as you slowly push boxes above his head, him not noticing, and eventually smush him like a Bugs Bunny cartoon. It honestly looks pretty fun, but just like an escape game in a box, I feel like it's going to be a sort of one and done situation. Once you figure out the puzzle, there's not really much that you're going to revisit to figure out that puzzle. Maybe you will in 5 years when you've forgotten the solutions. But you are getting 80 puzzles with the base game and 30 more with the expansion, and a bunch of new mechanics in the expansion as well, like ramps and whatever. And they do offer a print and play version. So if you have a bunch of dice, well, Kenji's quest is proven right, and you can use those as substitute blocks to kind of go through this mobile puzzle experience in a tactile, screenless way. It really does remind me of a mobile game. I think if it becomes a mobile game, it would be a really good one, be a huge hit, because it's so simple, it's solo, and it's puzzles, and it's just on this small little grid. It's $61 Canadian for the base game, or $87 Canadian for the base game and the expansion, which seems very pricey, but it's $12 for the print and play. Accessible if you want to kind of go through this solo experience on your own. But if you are getting a physical copy, it is free local pickup in Toronto, Ontario. That's where I am. And that really makes me reconsider, because I hate shipping so much. It's the boon of my existence. And if I know that I can spend a price and it can just go to game designers, well, that is okay by me. I really wish I had a little bit more information on the infinite mode to see how replayable this mode actually is, because I didn't really believe it. But otherwise, you might be able to find some puzzles online to keep it fresh. Maybe some people have designed their own puzzles. I looked a little bit online. I couldn't find any, but I didn't really look that hard. So anyway, if you want to get that, it's 5 p.m. Friday to decide. Now, next up, we have CMON's Mall Cops of the Universe, Blarts of Eternia. And I'm not going to get into too much detail on this one, because I have a whole separate video about this that goes through the positives of why I'm excited about it and the reasons why maybe you shouldn't back this one, which I'm sure you've seen. But the basics are, it's one versus all. You get to level up your characters. There's some programming elements to it, some teamwork from the all side, obviously. And it's scenario based, so your goals will vary, but ultimately it's usually about punching Skeletor in the head and making his plans go awry. Or playing as the villains and punching He-Man in the head and taking back Eternia for the bad guys, the wrongly accused. There's a lot to like about this game. There's also lots that may make you want to pass on the $110 initial price point. And while I usually do think that the base pledge of any CMON pledge is usually pretty decent value just because of all the stretch goals that they generally will throw in, there's not enough drawing me in here to make me spend that money. So don't forget to check out that other video if you want a more detailed breakdown. And if you're interested, you have until Friday at 10 p.m. to decide. I will say, before we move on, one of their stretch goals are these power containers, which are just plastic containers to hold their tokens, which, like, come on. I mean, it's great to see you're moving into this direction with accessible storage. They even call it a quality of life change. Yes, your storage is horrible, but come on. This should be the standard here. And please continue along this train and give actual optimized storage that helps with setup and teardown and not just a bunch of vacuum trade trays. Or that's fine. Give us power containers. Give us containers for everything. Give us game trays. One more thing before we go is they also have a holiday scenario, so if you felt like you wanted to test your relationship over Christmas, well, it's always nice to see. This has currently raised $1.25 million US over that, so unfortunately I still don't have enough sway with my 5 Reasons You Shouldn't Back series to completely demolish and destroy a company, because that's ultimately my goal, because I hate games. But we'll get there. Now, our next one has also raised over 1.1 million yen, which is like 12,000 Canadian, but it's still past its funding goal, so great job, Ambal Tournament. This is sort of another heads-up dueling game.
So it's just like Duel Monsters.
Trying to get your opponent's health to 0 or their max energy to 5. And I always like when there's this sort of secondary win condition. It makes me feel like there might be a variance in strategy rather than just hit your opponent over the head more times than they can hit you. The big one about this is that it's all about simultaneous play. So you draw your cards at the same time. Well, you kind of do that in every game, but you commit your cards at the same time, which you kind of do in some games, but you flip your cards at the same time. You see where I'm going with this. And then resolve it at the same time, continuing to use energy to play additional cards in this battle. Once you're out of energy or you pass, you then refresh, get more energy, keep moving till somebody wins. But I do like this simultaneous play and resolution because it will limit the downtime. And I feel like limiting downtime is always good, especially in this sort of style of game. Now that's 3,600 yen or $42 Canadian, which still seems pricey for what it is. But hey, when you compare the 42 to the yen number, well then you got a steal of a deal. It's a little too pricey for me, but if you're interested in heads-up dueling card games, well, take a look. And you have until 10:59 a.m. next Tuesday the 5th to decide. And finally, our last game this week is Sushi Boat, the fast and fun party game guaranteed to make you hungry. Or at least that's what they claim. But it's immediately a cool concept just looking at the board. It's a sushi restaurant where the plates are all going around this conveyor belt, and just being able to take a little token and push all the sushi plates around the conveyor belt and have the ones that weren't eaten spit out on the end immediately makes me interested in participating. You're gonna take turns visiting the staff, eating delicious sushi, because you gotta visit the staff, right? You gotta check in when you're at a sushi restaurant. You don't wanna just sit and eat. You want to say hi to the chef and the servers and the owner to make sure next time you come in, you get the best table. And you're going to eat sushi and stack the plates in front of you like serial killer's trophies. Ooh, this took a dark turn. But once a plate is stacked in front of you, you can't look at the previous plates. I mean, they would be empty, but you can't look to see the little crumbs to remind you of what you ate. So you're going to have to remember not only what you ate, because you're making certain sets to get bonuses, but also there's a little portion of the board that you can't see where the sushi will round the bend, and you're going to have to remember what's coming out whenever wasabi challenges are played. It's going to take a lot of memory to be good at this game, and at the same time you're snarfing up the side dishes that the kitchen is putting out as well. And once all these side dishes are gone, the game is done. Whoever has the most points based on sets will win the game. It looks super unique, and I love unique. I wish it was just a little bit cheaper, because $60 US or 76 Canadian plus shipping is just considerably more than I would want to spend on a game that is as light mechanically as this. But I think it's going to be fun and is a unique theme. I really think it hurts itself by calling itself a party game, because I can think of maybe 5 games on this list, which are not party games, that have less strategic depth than I think Sushi Boat will offer. Anyway, if you're interested in participating, that's 4 p.m. on Tuesday. And on the subject of sushi, if you live in Toronto, check out Gyoko Sushi. Oh my goodness. You want to talk about good sushi? Their spicy salmon roll is the best in the land. And that is not a hyperbole. I can't say better things about Gyoko. Where my Torontonians at? Anyway, that's it. We did it. Another week down. So every week I do a pick for me and a pick for you. This week I have one that really jumps out at me, something that I think is really cool. And then, so I'll save that as the pick for you. The pick for me this week is one that I'm not gonna get, but I'm definitely interested in acquiring eventually. And I'm gonna go with Solforge Fusion because I really do enjoy Keyforge. I think Keyforge is a really simple system. It's easy to play. My friends were very into the Game of Thrones card game, spent thousands of dollars on it, and then played Keyforge and went, oh yeah, this is better. And that's how I was introduced to it. I think Keyforge is really good, so I'm kind of putting faith in the Keyforge enjoyment and that Solforge will have as similar an enjoyment. I have to kind of wait and see if it's going to have too much emphasis on that tournament play and too much emphasis on trying to acquire the best half deck, or if you can kind of have a good time regardless of the decks that you have. But I think it looks neat. So Solforge would be the pick for me just because of my own personal relationship with Keyforge. And the pick for you is, of course, Dog Park, a beautiful board game about walking dogs. I think it looks great. I think there's going to be a lot of care in this. The art is so charming. The art physically makes me happy. I'm a dog person. I like dogs. And just seeing all these wonderful watercolored dogs looks really cool. I think this will appeal to people who maybe don't like board games in the same way that Wingspan appeals to people who don't like sort of fantasy themes and whatever we associate the tabletop gaming genre to be. I think having it be such an open and welcoming theme is only a good thing. And of course it's going to get compared to Wingspan because of that sort of accessibility. But the mechanics of this and the rules, I think it's going to be a lot easier for people to pick up than Wingspan. It is pricey, still a little pricey for what you get. I don't know if I'd want to spend that much money on it. I don't have to worry about spending the money because this is my pick for you. Obviously, don't spend the money if you don't want to, but I think out of all the games that I looked at this week, that one definitely has the most appeal to me based on solid rules and a gorgeous theme. So there we go. What are you backing this week, if anything? I just realized I didn't check GameFound if anything was finishing. Shame on me. I'm gonna hope that there isn't, but if there are, I'll put some links to it in the description below. It shows that while GameFound is still booming, it is still not always top of mind, but it's gonna get there. Lots of things are migrating over, and they've funneled a whole lot of money through it, and not on Kickstarter. But yeah, what are you backing? What are you interested in? What did I get wrong, in my opinion? As always, I love hearing from you. Let's wrap it up. For those of you who were playing Spot the Blart, how many did you get? What's your tally at right now? I mean, it's pretty obvious. Are we just shy of our goal? Do we think another Blart will appear in the remaining 45 seconds of this video? That would be pretty nuts, wouldn't it? Maybe I can give you a bonus Blart right here. I hear he's like Beetlejuice or Rumpelstiltskin. You just have to call him by his name. No, not that one. I'll give it a try. Anyway, for the rest of you, my name is Chris George. I don't have a catchphrase. Just slipped my mind, I guess. But know that if there's one man you can count on, it's not me, it's Paul Blart Slop Mop. It's Paul Blart Chop Shop. Paul Mall Pop Tart. Tall Fall Crop Top. Paul Blart Can't Stop. Stop Cop and Blart. Paul Plop Plop Plop.